Okay, this is summary review number 2, and this is dealing with what we call the difference quotient. That's the f of x plus h minus f of x all over h kind of expression, and we're just going to use different functions and put this in and simplify. You just have to be careful when you substitute, then you shouldn't have any difficulty. So this is my function 4x, so whatever is in here I'm going to multiply by 4. So if it's f of x plus h, it's going to be 4 times x plus h. So there's my f of x plus h, 4 times x plus h, minus the original function, 4x all over h. And then once you write this out, you just simplify. 4x plus 4h minus 4x over h. The x terms cancel, so I've got 4x over, the x terms cancel, so I've got 4h over h. The x's cancel, so I've got 4. And then because we have an h in the denominator, h cannot be equal to 0. This holds for all the problems, so we won't write that again, but all the problems have an h is not equal to 0 stipulation. Okay, here's another function. F of x equals 3x plus 7. So again, I'm going to put this in the difference quotient. So instead of every time I see an x, I'll put an x plus h. So this is the substitution or the application of this function to the difference quotient. So we have 3 times, instead of x, we've got x plus h plus 7 minus the original function all over h. Okay, and then after that you simplify. 3x plus 3h, 3x plus 3h plus 7 minus 3x minus 7. And the x terms cancel and the numerical terms cancel, so we end up with just 3h over h, which is just 3. On number 5, this is one we did in the Are You Ready for Calculus? Same problem, so we'll do it anyway, just for complete this. In this case, the function f of x equals x squared. Okay, so we've got f of, again, the difference quotient, x plus h, f of x plus h. So every time I see an x, I put an x plus h, so that just becomes x plus h squared minus x squared, that's the f of x over h. Now we have to multiply this out, so it's just a binomial squared, x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. So we just square that out, minus the x squared all over h. So hopefully this makes sense. And the x squareds cancel, so I've got 2xh plus h squared, just these two terms left over h. And notice they both have an h in them, so I can factor that h out. And this happens in most cases. We can factor an h out, or in many cases, not always, but in many cases. And these h's cancel. In some way, we're going to get rid of the h in the bottom. That's the trick. So usually we'll factor it out. We'll cancel the h's here, as long as h is not equal to 0, and that's always a stipulation. And then we just end up with 2x plus h. All right, so again, that's pretty straightforward. It's not really difficult. Once you get the hang of it, just have to be careful that you make the initial substitution correctly. All right? Okay, let's try number 7. It's a little longer now because my function's a trinomial. So f of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. So every time I see an x, f of x, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set a square it, minus 4 times it plus 3. And then if we look at our difference quotient, again, difference quotient, then every time I see an x, I'm going to put an x plus h in this part minus just the original function. So here's my substitution. So instead of x squared, I got x plus h squared minus 4 times x plus h plus 3. Minus the original function, which is just x squared minus 4x plus 3 all over h. And then I just simplify. So again, I'll square this out. X squared plus 2xh plus h squared, negative 4x, negative 4h plus 3, and then negative x squared. Negative times the negative is a positive 4x. Negative times a positive is negative 3 all over h. And look what happens. The x squares cancel. The x terms cancel and the numbers cancel, so that just leaves me with expressions with h's in them. 2xh plus h squared minus 4h over h. And then again, I can factor out the h, because the trick on these is we've got to get rid of the h in the bottom. We can't have a factor of h in the bottom. You'll see that a little bit later when we talk about this. So these will cancel out, and this is what's left. And that's all right to have an h on the top. Okay. And number 9. f of x is just another trinomial, very similar to number 7, 2x squared plus x minus 1. So here we go. This is our difference quotient. And then it's going to be 2x plus h squared plus h minus 1 minus the original function minus 2x squared plus x minus 1. Now here I'm going to square this out an extra step, so I'll just take one step to square this binomial out. So I've got x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, but remember that's preceded by a 2, so don't forget that. This I can just remove. I can remove the parentheses, x plus h minus 1. Then I can multiply this out, negative 2x squared, negative x, positive 1. And then I can multiply this out, so I did take that extra step to do that. So now we have 2x squared, 4xh, 2h squared, and then everything else is the same, x, h, minus 1, minus 2x squared, minus x, plus 1. And again, notice what happens. The x squared terms cancel, the x's cancel, and the numerical terms cancel, the 1's cancel. So I have just left with the 4xh, 2h squared, plus h. Just the terms with the h's in them. And then again, we're going to always be concerned about this h in the bottom. So what we can do is we can factor an h out of the top, and we can cancel these h's, so we just have this trinomial left. 4x plus 2h plus 1. That's all there is to it. Hopefully that makes hopefully all that makes sense.